Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Yura and welcome to the month of Meadowlands' Cope Week, as I am dubbing it. This is going to be a list of decks that feels like they should be like rogue or just kind of knocking on that door, but are just not quite there for one reason or another. And the reason why I'm calling it Cope Week is because these are decks that I actually have faith can actually do something if maybe built a little better, or if we find a weird tech, or if, you know, something in terms of just rebuilding the core engine of a deck comes through. And we're starting off Cope Week with my arguably favorite synchro deck in the entire format, Dragunity. I adore this deck. It is really sick. I think the synchro monsters that it has access to are really interesting, and it gets to play around with some very, very cool cards. And it also gets to live in the spot in my brain of the one deck that gets to use Zephyros properly. Because so many of the decks that we were building around the start of Meadowlands was utilizing Zephyros as a rank 4 extender. And I got so mad at this card for always being in my opener that I stopped playing it almost entirely. There are a few decks that I still play it in, but not many, really not many. Dragunity is one of the exceptions to that, and it's for very good reason. Zephyros combos phenomenally with Dragunity's archetypal field spell that is honestly barely even archetypal at this point in the modern day, Dragon Ravine, and this card does everything. It is at 3 alongside 3 copies of Terraforming, so you pretty much always will find it through one way or another. And the Dragunity monsters are on their own fine. The problem with the Dragunity monsters is, and maybe this is a build issue, it could very well be a build issue, these guys really just unbelievably lose to the normal summon getting stopped. Unfortunately, there is a solution to this problem. In fact, there are 2 of them. We have neither, though. The first being Tempest Dragon Ruler of Storms, I think is his full name. Obviously, we don't have that for a card pool issue. The other one is also a card pool issue, and is one that I brought up in the intro to Meadowlands, and that is MAVELUS. If anyone knows what MAVELUS is, I'm going to search it up in the text box. It's not going to show up. I will go to the TCG thing here. Don't look at this right now. MAVELUS is a level 4 Wind-Winged Beast fusion monster that is, in theory, summonable off of instant fusion. This card was printed in the OCG for a very, very, very long time before Meadowlands even became a thing, but it never got ported over. So instead of having an instant fusion target that works as a non-tuner for our powerful synchro monsters that require non-tuner winged beasts, we have nothing. So I am not sure where the future lies for Dragunity. I think this version of the deck is still pretty okay, and while the instant fusions in here might be cope, I still think that having access to rank 4s, even if we aren't really playing many of them, but also just like general synchro laddering is still fine. And they let you do some silly things like getting into Trident Dragion somewhat consistently. So there is like still a reason to play them, even if it is not ideal. But Dragunity on the whole is still a pretty interesting archetype around this time, and it has seen historical success. And that's for a couple of really important reasons. One, it gets really easy access to Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, as does Hieratic. The normal summons in this deck do actually, if they are allowed to resolve, represent a pretty decent amount of board advantage, just being able to loop Phalanx over and over and over again to make like a Stardust Dragon protecting the Dragon Ravine that is set up for next turn. You can search out hand traps a la DD Crow because you have a card like Gay Dirg, which can search out winged beasts and then discard a card. The search can be the DD Crow, and then you could discard something else. But also, even past like Ducks for Phalanx, we have Legionnaire for Aklis, which on its own represents 2 pops, which is pretty interesting. This deck does have a lot going for it, despite the fact that it does have a pretty heavily reliance on its normal summon sticking. And that's where the Cope Week of this comes into play. I do think that there are maybe some things that can be done to this deck to make it better, but I want to at the very least go over where the deck is at currently so we can try and figure out where to go from here. And I will not be doing a full scrapyard on this, or really any deck in this week, except for exactly this Sunday where we will have a scrapyard for a deck that I believe belongs in this Cope week. But for right now, we're going to go for the card by card and the general overview of the deck to give you a general sense of where Dragunity currently lies. I think there is no better place to start than with Dragon Ravine. Dragon Ravine is the core of the deck. There's a reason we're on 6 ways to it. Dragon Ravine can either once per turn discard a card and then activate one of the following effects. Either add a level 4 or lower Dragunity monster from your deck to your hand, of which we have 3 targets for that are our normal summons and 4 additional targets that are our guys that want to get equipped to the normal summons. Or you can send a dragon monster from your deck to the graveyard. Again, the lower level Dragunity monsters here, the Atlas and the Phalanx, would be the targets for this. Dragon Ravine, importantly, is not a hard once per turn anywhere on the card, which is why Zephyros is so important here, because if you open the Zephyros alongside the Dragon Ravine, you can go Dragon Ravine, pitch the Zephyros, bounce the Ravine, then activate again and do its effect a second time. The main combo that you'll be doing with this is Dragon Ravine plus Zephyros in the opener, Dragon Ravine, activate, pitch Zephyros, add Phalanx, Dragon Ravine again after you bounce it back with Zephyros, pitch the Phalanx, and then add Ducks, and then suddenly you have enough materials to make a Vajrayana because you have Phalanx and Zephyros in rotation, and then you can roll some of the Ducks and get the Phalanx on board by equipping it and then using the Phalanx's effect to summon itself out. Pretty sick. The core of this combo loop is facilitated by the Dragunity Ducks and the Dragunity Legionnaires, though. Ducks is probably the main guy in the deck that you want to find for your normal summon. Specifically, Ducks can gain 200 attack for each Dragunity card you control, and when this card is normal summoned, you can target a level 3 or lower Dragon Dragunity monster in your graveyard and equip that target to this card. It's like a new version of the Cyber Darks, except they're not ass. Legionnaire is very similar to Ducks, although this is a level 3 instead of a level 4, which makes synchroing with it a little bit more awkward. But Legionnaire is not really used for synchro laddering and is instead more for breaking apart boards. Specifically, this has the very same effect that Ducks has to, on normal summon, equip a level 3 or lower Dragon Dragunity monster in your graveyard, and you can send a Dragunity card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard. Notably, does not have to be the one equipped to the Legionnaire, in order to target a face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy that target. This card works extremely well alongside Atlas, who on normal summon can special summon a Dragunity monster from your hand and equip it with this card. Then if this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. Pairing this alongside the Legionnaire represents 2 pops, one for a face-up monster and one for any card on the field, which is pretty solid for just a normal summon. The other Dragunity monster that we're running that is searchable off of the Dragon Ravine is the Dragunity Phalanx. Phalanx has a very simple effect to, once per turn, while the card is equipped to a monster, can special summon itself. Phalanx being your main tuner because it has the accessibility to just repeatedly loop itself if you have access to additional ways of equipping itself, which is mostly going to be done by getting into the extra deck, and also to Dragunity Arma Mistletoe, who is one of our 2 big Dragunities that we are on in the main deck. Mistletoe specifically reads, you can special summon this card from your hand by sending a face-up Dragunity monster you control to the graveyard. Can be any of them, can be the Phalanx, can be the Atlas, literally any of them. When this card is normal or special summoned from the hand, you can target a Dragon Dragunity monster in your graveyard and equip that target to this card. Notably, this does not have the level restriction, but there isn't really a whole lot of reason to be like equipping another copy of itself or like the Arma Levitain, so, you know, it's not super important, but you can if you really wanted to. But Mistletoe being a 6 that can equip the Phalanx from the grave makes a very easily accessible Synchro 8, which is pretty solid because Stardust Dragon is on its own kind of weird to out and is really solid at protecting your Dragon Ravine and your general plays. The final Dragunity name in the main deck is Dragunity Arma Levitain. This is your big way of making a game push and can make a Trident Dragon extremely cleanly. Levitain reads, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard by banishing a monster you control equipped with a Dragunity card, and when this card is normal or special summoned, you can target a dragon monster in your graveyard except Arma Levitain, equip that target to this card, and when this card you control is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can target a monster that were equipped to this card when it was sent to the graveyard and special summon that monster. Levitain actually does have a reason to equip the non-Phalanx and Atlases, because if you equip, say, your Dragunity Synchro monsters, you can just get them back for relatively free. But Levitain is also just a very easy way to access Trident Dragon, being a level 8 dragon non-tuner. Can equip a Phalanx and the Phalanx can summon itself, and using those two, being a 1 dragon type tuner and a dragon type non-tuner, can make the Synchro 10 Trident Dragon, which can be really solid for game pushes. The rest of the monsters that are rounding this lineup out are mostly just ways of extending from our hand, or being ways that we can get Dragon Ravine to be reset, like the Zephyros the Elite. The other cards that we have to facilitate this are the Garuda the Wind Spirit, which is a free special summon from hand by banishing a wind monster from our graveyard. You'll notice our entire main deck, apart from exactly the effect fillers for our non-engine and the 1 Red Ice Darkness Metal Dragon, are all wind. We also have 1 copy of Mist Valley Baby Rock, which is kind of similar to like Dragunity Phalanx here, but it is a winged beast tuner that when sent from hand to the graveyard can special summon itself. This works really nicely alongside the Dragon Ravine because it works with that discard cost. Mist Valley Baby Rock does not have to be sent by card effect, it just has to be sent at all, meaning that if you activate Ravine's effect to discard this card, or you use Gay Dirg's effect to search and send it, you can then special summon it out and keep that field advantage online. That's pretty much it for the monsters though. The general Dragunity lineup is pretty simple. The general core of the game plan is that you're going to be normal summoning ducks, getting Phalanx, Phalanx summoning itself, making a Vajrayana, using the Vajrayana to equip the Phalanx again, then Phalanx summon itself, and then get into a Synchro 8, and then try to sit on that while you wait for a game push the following turn. This deck is really competent at doing exactly that, but not super competent at doing a lot else. While it does have really clean access to a Synchro pool because this is a big Synchro laddering deck, it doesn't have a lot of room in the extra deck to make these generic rank 4s that are pretty solid at controlling the game space. You'll notice that we're only on 5 Xyz monsters, 3 of which are rank 6s that are to be made when we've already kind of exhausted our resource loop and to be made with like a Mistletoe and a Vajrayana, or like 2 rank 4s that are just either a tech choice into really solid meta decks or a Maestro just in case something goes horribly wrong. The rest of the spell trap lineup though is pretty standard. We've got 3 instant fusions for the double Darkfire Dragon. We've got the 1 heavy, the 1 dark hole, the 1 foolish, the 1 reborn, the 1 warning, the 1 judgment, the triple MST, the triple terraform, and it turns out the triple Dragon Ravine. And also we've got 2 cards of consonance because this works alongside the Dragunity Phalanxes and the Alkalises that we will find in our hand in order to get them into the graveyard, which is where they want to be, and getting us 2 additional draws as well. The only other card that we're on in the main deck is the double Breakthrough Skill. We're opting to play Breakthrough Skill instead of something like Fiendish Chain because Breakthrough Skill can be safely discarded off of the Dragon Ravine and still have value to us in the graveyard. Onto the extra deck, I've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but we've got the double Darkfire Dragon for our instant fusion target because there isn't really anything better. We've got the 1 Trident Dragon to make game pushes, the 1 Crimson Blader to interrupt higher level decks, the 1 Scrap Dragon because it outs Gaios pretty cleanly, the 1 Stardust Dragon to protect our board, the 1 Dragunity Knight Gay Dirg, which is a Dragunity specific Synchro monster. I'd say that, but its materials are technically generic, requiring 1 Dragon Tuner and 1 non-tuner Winged Beast monster. Once per turn, this card can add a level 4 or lower Dragon or Winged Beast monster from your deck to your hand, then discard a Dragon or Winged Beast monster. It's kind of like Dragon Ravine on legs. We also have 1 Orient Dragon. This is for weird hands where you need to go like a Phalanx into Darkfire Dragon, and basically this helps you clean up like a weird board state where you have a 6 on board and you want to make a rank 6, but you just don't really have the ability to do that because your non-tuners are weird. Orient Dragon is kind of that level 6 Dragon Synchro that you can use to get to a 2. Finally, rounding out the Synchros, we've got 2 Dragunity Knight Vajrayana. Vajrayana is arguably the best Synchro monster in the deck, at least out of the Dragunity names. Vajrayana specifically reads, when this card is Synchro summoned, you can target a level 3 or lower Dragon Dragunity monster in your graveyard and equip that target to this card. And once returned, you can send an equipped card you control to the graveyard in order to double this card's attack until the end of this turn. 3,800 is still a pretty solid stat line to get, even if it cannot attack under Gaios or be summoned under Ophion. If you might have guessed, this deck does struggle with the same issues that a lot of decks in this format do, and that is dealing with Ophion and Gaios' floodgate effects are really, really difficult. Under the Xyz build, we actually have some really interesting ones accessible to us in Constellar Ptomaly M7 being a bounce, which is pretty solid. We've got 1 Photon Strike Bouncer, probably just the best rank 6 interruption piece, 1 hieratic Dragon King of Atum because our synchros are all dragons, and we also have Arma Mistletoe as a level 6 dragon as well to get us access to our Red Ice Darkness Metal Dragon, which is really solid for extending our plays. We also have 1 Maestro the Symphony Djinn in case something goes terribly wrong, and 1 Abyss Dweller just to hit the graveyard decks. In the side deck, we actually have a really interesting little 2-card combo here. 1 Rees Whirlwind of Gusto and 1 Gusto Griffin. Griffin is a really interesting add off of the previously mentioned Gay Durg being a winged beast monster that reads, if this card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can special summon a Gusto monster from your deck, and this is only once per turn, but the monster that we will be summoning off of this is Rees Whirlwind of Gusto, who as a level 5 psychic monster can once per turn return a card from your hand to the bottom of the deck in order to target a monster your opponent controls and a face-up Gusto monster you control and switch control of both monsters. This is a really funny way of outing a problematic monster. Rees can just swap with them, which is, you know, pretty funny, or at the very least will force your opponent to negate it. On to more of the generics, we have 3 Max C for the combo decks, 3 DD Crow because they are searchable and are pretty decent general hand traps, 1 Mind Con for going second, same with the Book of Moon, 3 Lightning Vortex, again for going second, and also because we don't have too many things that mind being in the graveyard, and we also round this out with double Bottomless Trap Hole. Now, a couple of things that I have an idea on where we can go from here. First things first, Dragunity Knight Barca is a very interesting card. Barca, in theory, is like a weird kind of soul charge for the deck. When this card is synchro summoned, you can target any number of Dragon Dragunity monsters in your graveyard and equip those Dragon monsters to this card. This card gains 300 attack for each Dragunity card equipped to it, but the main reason you would want to do this is for, like, Phalanx reasons. You could equip multiple Phalanxes to this, and then use the Phalanx plus the Barca to make a Trident Dragion, or use these multiple Phalanxes to utilize any like random level 4 bodies that are just kind of sitting around on your board to make additional synchro plays, which is really interesting in theory, but in practice has not seen a whole lot of testing. There are a couple of other Dragunity cards that I'm interested in messing around with, but again, they haven't really seen a whole lot of testing, one of them being Gay Bulg. I don't think this guy is good enough. He's kind of a weird battle trick, so I'm not fully sold on it. Dragon Mastery is also, like, in theory, a way to get more guys out of your hand, but we have plenty of ways to do that already. And then also Dragunity Knight Trident is kind of interesting. This is an extra deck rip, which is something that is really not present in this format. And while it's kind of weird to access, I do think it maybe is worth looking into. I don't know how you're going to make this consistently, considering that most of our tuners are like 2s and our main non-tuners are 4s outside of exactly the Legionnaire, but there is maybe something to be done here. I'm not fully sure where I want Dragunity to go from here, if I'm going to be fully honest. There is a world in which it tries to go in more so on the ability to make level 7 synchros and goes along to make like Ancient Fairy Dragon pre-errata, which can grab additional copies of Dragon Ravine for additional activations of that. Ancient Fairy Dragon also notably has a really interesting effect to special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand, which can in theory help alleviate the current issue that we're having where the normal summon is pretty easily outable by like a Bottomless Trap Hole, which is like the worst thing possible, or just a handful of other solid removal tools. There's also, of course, always the forbidden cards in general. I think Lance, of course, being the most popular one at the time because this can protect your ducks on summon, although not from a judgment or warning. But into Bottomless or something like that, this is pretty solid and will more often than not guarantee that your ducks will go through. And I think that is definitely worth looking into. Honestly, I could even see that like the instant fusion is getting cut entirely and just going along a more pure route, cutting the instant fusion targets out of the extra deck, filling out a little bit more of the toolbox side of things, ideally to out things like the Ophion, and then adding in Forbidden Lance to help your normal summon guys stick instead of having the instant fusions act as a sort of band-aid fix to the problem because we don't have a winged beast target that would act in place of the ducks. So there's a handful of things that I want to try out with this deck going forward, but this is where the deck is currently standing, and I feel like there's nothing better to do than to see it in action. All right, we've got Dragunity lined up here into, I know it doesn't look like it, but it's Bubble Beat. And this is a matchup that I've actually had a lot of practice in because at least in the early parts of the format, we were testing a lot of like the decks that were already around. And I, being the dumb rogue focused person that I am, immediately started branching away from the things that were already historically successful and onto decks that made my brain tingle. Dragunity was one of the first ones that it led me to, and shout outs to the many people who have genuinely helped this list come as far as it has, specifically Darth Nash, literally the GOAT. Like we were doing pods at YCS Indy, and I don't remember if he won one of the pods with Dragunity, but he absolutely popped off with it. And it is genuinely the main reason why I even stuck to playing this deck, because there were so many instances of just like, oh, I'll normal summon decks into Gaios, and then I'll just get sad. I'll just cry about it. But that legitimately showed me that even if your initial normal summon gets negated or you walk into a bottomless, it's not the end of the world. And I love this deck. I think it's really sick. I love playing it. And even though I was watching back the deck profile as I was like editing it just now, and I was like, wow, this deck has so many problems. Like, why am I not on Forbidden Lance? I should be on that over Instant Fusion. And then I got into like actually play the games with it, and I was like, oh god, it's so fun. I'm just having a great time. And now I'm here recording the replay commentary for it, and I'm just really excited to show these games off because I think we got to show off a lot of what Dragunity wants to do in this format. Not so much what Bubble Beat wants to do in this format. I don't think we drew Miracle Fusion a single time, but like 3 cards in 40. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. Bubble Beat is mostly like an Xyz deck anyway, so it is what it is. But with that said, we're going to hop right into this best of 3. We, I believe, won the die roll here, and we're going to lead off with the Dragon Ravine, the Legionnaire, the Terraforming for a second copy of Dragon Ravine if you want, and Mistletoe and an MST into our opponent's Heavy Storm, Bottomless Trap Hole, Instant Fusion, Reinforcement of the Army, and Bottomless Trap Hole. 2 of those things. The 2 things that I was just complaining about owning ducks without having access to Lance. So let's see what we can do here. We're going to start things off in draw phase. We're going to find exactly that ducks. We're going to go with this Dragon Ravine. Dragon Ravine is going to pitch the Terraforming to dump a copy of the Phalanx to the graveyard. And it's time for full combo. We're going to go ducks, equip the Phalanx. Phalanx summon itself, make a Vajrayana. Vajrayana equip the Phalanx, do the Phalanx shuffle, do the Phalanx again. Summon up this Mistletoe. Mistletoe is going to equip the Phalanx. Phalanx summon itself again. Make a Hieratic Dragon King of a Tomb. Detach the Mistletoe to summon a Red MD. Red MD is going to revive the Mistletoe to make a Stardust Dragon, and then we're going to set this MST before passing to our opponent. They're going to join to a Call the Haunted for turn and go for Rhoda. Rhoda's going to get a Stratos. Stratos is going to summon and get themselves from deck to hand a copy of Bubbleman. They're going to go this Heavy Storm, which we are going to check with the Stardust Dragon. I love this card so much. They're going to set the whole hand and then summon out this Bubbleman when we are going to hit a Bottomless Trap Hole from this blind MST, which I know you're not really supposed to blind MST here, but like I wanted to hit any potential trap cards before they came online, and hitting one of the bottomless is a pretty nice hit there. They're going to go the Instant Fusion to get this Carbonella Warrior. Honestly, probably could have just activated the Instant Fusion instead of setting it, but I think they wanted to try and bait out what our back row was first. So they're just going to go into the Excalibur here. Excalibur is going to boost itself up to 4k so they can clear our full board, but in the end phase, we're going to get our Stardust back. Stardust is going to summon itself, and we have to now defeat this 4,000 attack Excalibur and 2 back row, one of which is live, and technically the Call the Haunted is also live, but they're not really wanting to deploy that until they get the Stratos engraved. We're going to go Ravine to pitch this Cards of Consonance to jump an Atlas to graveyard. Now we get to see the other main combo of your main Dragunity monsters, which is Legionnaire equip Atlas. Legionnaire notably goes under Bottomless Trap Hole. He's a 1200 attack monster, which is pretty nice. We're going to do the Legionnaire combo with detaching Atlas and then popping both the Excalibur and this Bottomless Trap Hole. Thank God we sniped that out. They are going to go the Call the Haunted, though, to stave off some damage and get an additional search off of this Stratos to get into another Bubble Man. We're going to pass to them, and they are going to draw an MST for turn, which they are going to use to bait out our Stardust Dragon to try to get some additional damage on board. They're going to go this Bubble Man into a Blade Armor Ninja to swing over both our Legionnaire and hit us directly in the face for 22. We just got over talking about Blade Armor yesterday, but I really do still love this card. Unfortunately, just a little too small to beat the Stardust Dragon. We're going to go this Dragon Ravine to pitch this Breakthrough skill we drew for turn, and genuinely having Dragon Ravine on for multiple turns is like one of the main ways you can win with this deck. It feels so good to just search a starter every single turn. It's phenomenal. We're going to use this Dux that we searched to equip a Phalanx, go the Vajrayana. Vajrayana is going to equip this Atlas, and then we're going to get rid of the Atlas to pop this Ninja, doubling Vajrayana's attack and getting in for exactly lethal. Really clean game one that felt really good. All right, game two, and our opponent has chosen to go first. Our hand is looking a little weaker. We don't really want to see the double Solemns going second. They don't really do a whole lot for us here. Honestly, I could even see the argument in this deck specifically and in this matchup specifically to just like side them out for something else, but it is what it is. We've opened Terraforming MST and Dux alongside those double Solemns into our opponent's Double Warrior Returning Alive, Reinforcement of the Army, Call the Haunted, and a Summoner Monk. They're going to draw 4, turn into a Monster Reborn, and get things started with this Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is going to activate its effect, pitching this Warrior Returning Alive to get into a Stratos. Stratos is going to add a Bubble Man to hand, and then they're going to set the hand to summon the Bubble Man. They're going to make a Shockmaster, turning off spell cards. Notably, this does turn off their spell cards, but I don't think they're actually too worried about it because they know what we're on, and they know that our deck kind of needs our spell cards to do anything unless we exactly open like Phalanx plus Mistletoe, which is not super common. So we're going to draw for turn into a dead Darkhold, just set 3 cards and pass. They're going to go this Call the Haunted to get a Stratos back, and then the Stratos is going to add a Bubble Man. We're going to pass to them. They're going to find a Summoner Monk off the top. We're going to blind fire this MST. Not really blind. We're going to hit that Call the Haunted. And then they're going to go this Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is going to change itself. And then they're going to go the Bubble Man before turning off any potential trap cards that we have back here with the Shockmaster, which allows them to activate their spell cards. They're going to go Warrior Returning for a Bubble Man. And then Rhoda for another Bubble Man. They're going to summon that out, make an Excalibur, double it to go to 4K, and then make a Mace Stroke before then going for the Monster Reborn, summoning out this Stratos. Probably could have done the Stratos first just in case these were like spell cards, but it didn't really matter at that point. They are then just going to swing in for an absolutely massive chunk of damage, killing us. Just a really rough game too. We barely got to play. All right, this is for all the marbles. We're going first once again, and we've opened pretty okay. Not really. We're kind of missing a lot of our main combo pieces. No access to Dragon Ravine is pretty unfortunate, but opening Heavy Storm into Bubble Beat is pretty solid because even though they do have this Judgment, we at least have a way to force it because this is a deck that absolutely needs to keep its back row online because that is where all of their cards in their hand go. So having a Heavy Storm here is pretty nice. We do actually have, and this is one of the reasons why I'm like not just ready yet to get rid of the Instant Fusion, is because of this hand right here. If this Instant Fusion was instead a Forbidden Lance, this hand would actively do nothing, but at the very least here, we can like make something happen. So we're going to start things off here. We're going to draw into a Veiler and then go for this Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is going to summon out a Darkfire Dragon, and we are going to summon up this Phalanx. A note that I'm going to touch on after this game, but I do think there is a world in which we play 2 differently leveled Instant Fusion targets for this deck, but we'll get to that later. We're going to go with the Orient Dragon and then set this Bottomless Trap Hole before passing to our opponent, who's going to set their whole hand, and then go the Instant Fusion for a Carbonala Warrior, and then into a Bubble Man from hand, and then into a Mace Stroke. We get to do something very cute here. We get to flip over this Bottomless Trap Hole and then chain our Veiler to it so we can rip the protection off of this Mace Stroke, and then they're going to go the Warrior Returning Alive to get at least some of the resources back here. They are then going to pass to end phase because I guess they were just trying to like keep this guy in hand for some reason or another. We're going to rip this Heavy Storm and bait out this Solemn Judgment. They're going to pay a lot of life points for that, but to keep their back row online is pretty important. Sorry, I forgot to mention, we drew a Dragon Ravine for turn, which is like the best possible draw on the deck. We're going to discard this Armored Leviathan for a Dux Search, which is then going to get hit by this Solemn Warning. We're going to attempt to walk in for game with the Orient Dragon and walk into a Mirror Force. And this is likely the reason why they kept that Bubble Man in hand, because Bubble Man, for those that don't know, does actually have an additional effect of when this card is summoned, you could draw 2 cards if you control no other cards and have no cards in your hand. There is a chance that they get to activate it here, which would be pretty detrimental for us. Their draw for turn, unfortunately, does not let that come to pass. They draw a Bottomless, but they're going to still summon out this Bubble Man to keep themselves safe. We're We're going to go Dragon Ravine here. Dragon Ravine is going to get us a Ducks. We're going to go Ducks to try to equip, but they're going to hit us with that Bottomless. Back to them, they find a Mirror Force, which is pretty nice. Good enough for them to want to swap their guy to attack position and get in for a little bit of damage. We're going to find a Foolish Barrier off the top, which we are just going to pitch for the Dragon Ravine. We're going to get a Legionnaire. Legionnaire is going to equip the Phalanx from Grave. And believe it or not, we have Levitate in rotation already. So now we can just get rid of the Legionnaire and summon this Levitate from Graveyard. We're going to use Levitate effect to equip the Orient Dragon from Graveyard because there isn't really a whole lot of reasons to go into Trident Dragon right now because we don't really have, I think it's 2 other cards that we need to pop to get 3 attacks. Yeah, 2 other cards, we don't have those, so we're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to equip it with an Orient Dragon, so we at least have something to float into in case something goes terribly wrong. We're going to walk over this Bubbleman, try to go in for game, eat this Mirror Force, and then trigger the Levitate to summon out this Orient Dragon to walk in for, again, exact lethal. So, Dragunity is not, like, meta for sure, but damn, it's fun. It's just so fun. I do think we need to touch this extra deck up a bit. I'm really not sure where the space is, unfortunately. I really want to, instead of Diamond Direwolf, I know Diamond Direwolf is like good in a Winged Beast deck, but I kind of want to play like a Maestroke or something in this slot, but it is really hard to find a space in a deck that feels so tight already. I do think it is definitely worth looking into the level 5 Instant Fusion targets and potentially a level 7 Synchro as just something to do, but I'm not super convinced by it. If we had a level 5 Winged Beast, I think it would be very different, but we don't. All of the Winged Beast targets for Instant Fusion are level 6s, so we can't really go ahead and go into what is it? The Trident, I think I brought up in the deck profile. Yeah, this guy. Unfortunately, we don't really have a clean access to this. And also, like, this guy requires so much resources from your field that I don't even know if it's worth it. The main one that I want to try to find space for is Barca, because Barca, late into a game, if you manage to stick it, feels really crazy. But we just don't really have a lot of the resources to make it feel good because it is a Dragon Tuner and a non-tuner Winged Beast monster, and all of our non-tuner Winged Beast monsters are level 4s, and our tuners are level 2s. We do a lot of laddering to get into our bigger guys, so this deck seems like it really wants us to, or rather, Barca seems like it really wants us to use like the level 5 Dragunities and the level 3 tuners, yeah, like a Dark Spear, which I'm going to be honest, I really just don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. I'm not really keen on that. But that said, I would love to just like pose this to anyone watching. If you have ideas for how to improve this deck, past the things that I've already kind of brought up. And I know like Forbidden Lance is definitely something that should probably be in here to protect our Duxes from those bottomless trap holes, because we ran into a bunch of those even in that one set. I think it is definitely something worth playing. I just don't really know where the space is. Maybe you could take the Veiler out of the main and just play it on the side instead. Probably can cut the Gusto package and like a Book of Moon to put the Veilers in here, and then just do the Forbidden Lances in main. I think that's a totally fine swap. I think honestly, I might actually just do that right now. I think this is perfectly serviceable. I think it shores up one of the main weaknesses that this deck does have, which is that normal summon getting popped. But the other thing that I really want to look into is trying to find space for potentially more back row in the main deck. The really unfortunate thing is I don't want to cut the instant fusions. I think what we could do is cut one of the Infu targets and maybe cut Infu to 2 and try to find space for something else in here that would maybe honestly like could just be the third Dux, just to like increase the rate at which we are opening these guys. I don't even hate that, but I don't want to mess with the list too much. I'm pretty perfectly content with where things are right now. But for the future, these are definitely things that I want to consider. And if I see anything interesting in the comments, I will absolutely be testing around with them because I do love this deck. I would love to see it do more cool things because I think it has a really interesting niche in the format. And I love just playing a Synchro Ladder deck. It's so fun. And genuinely, I think this is one of those decks that gets to make use out of genuinely one of my favorite cards of the 5Ds and even later on eras in Stardust Dragon. I think Stardust is maybe in one of the best homes it could have ever been in this deck specifically because protecting Dragon Ravine is just so good. With that said, though, I'm going to wrap up today's video here. I want to thank you all so much for sticking around to the end of the video, and I hope you all stick around for the rest of the month of Meadowlands as we continue to go through what I am currently referring to as Cope Week. I don't fully know what is next up in Cope Week. Initially, it was going to be in Zector, but that deck needs a lot more help before I am ready to show it off. So that might honestly not even make it to the month of Meadowlands. We'll see. That might be something that I just do way later on down the line. So well, I have a handful of decks that could be brought up here, and I will probably try to find something interesting in its place if I do not get to Inzector this week. But that said, I've yapped quite enough, so I'm going to hop out of here, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye-bye!